Everyone. Happy leap year. We were just talking about the fact that it is in fact a leap year and we're on the 29th today. So there's we won't go into the other whole half of our discussion in relation to engagements and all the rest of it.
It's not knitting related.
Just going to bypass that. But that is what we were talking about before we came on. So today we have got Clue 2 for our Green Clock Mystery Shawl Knit Along. The Clue was released on Tuesday, so if you are taking part, you'll now have Clue 1 and Clue 2. When you download Clue 2, I always just have all of the existing part of the patterns. You have the general information, Clue 1, and then Clue 2 is down at the bottom. But there's a slight difference this time because there was also a wave chart, so a new stitch pattern, and I put that up kind of in the information section on page 5. So just give you an idea where you'll find all the different bits and pieces. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on. Hey Trish, good morning to you as well. Nice to see you here. We had one question here before we came on that we will talk about from Roxanne, and she was hoping to see a demonstration of the wrap stitches. Now, I will say, Roxanne, that we've got in the actual video, if you're able to access that on Teachable, that is part of the knit along, the pattern. I will have a demo of each of those because, of course, to create the wave pattern, you're using wrap stitches with different amount of wraps, right? It goes from, the first one was 2, isn't it? You've done it more recently.
Yeah, it was 2, 2, 3, 4,
and then you drop down
3,
again.
2,
so they're basically making those stitches bigger and smaller as you go down. So that's all you're doing with the wrap stitches, but we will kind of get into things that might trip you up, or also possibly kind of just different ways that you can make it a bit easier for yourself as you're working through it. So the actual knit along clues that you've been posting up for the first clue are fantastic. I'm loving it. Like all of the color combinations are so good. There's everything, like the very, very subtle ones are gorgeous just because the textures look different. And then there's other ones that are just like blowing it out of the park with these huge, big, bright color contrasts. They all look great, totally different, but all really, really beautiful. So if you don't want to see some of those, jump into the finished object thread, the FO photo thread in KnitHub, because you can just kind of scroll through and see them there. Again, if you are taking part and you don't want to spoil the mystery from anyone, just pop all of those photographs in there. It's the safest place for them so that people who want to see them can see them, but that they can still take part in the chats without getting a surprise if they are spoiling the surprise if they don't want it spoiled. So. But yeah, pop up. I'm kind of taking a look in here and give me a shout if there's anything that you are a little bit confused on or you'd like a bit of help with as you're going through, or even any pointers in relation to modifications you're making. And also, if any of you have made changes to Clue 1, let me know, and kind of to figure out what else you have to change going forward. So like we've been basically making changes as we go through. Do bear in mind, again, we're going to be showing Clue 2 here. So
spoiler alert.
Yeah. So big spoiler alert
Mm-hmm.
here. So put your, just maybe turn the screen off if you want to hear the words but not see the photographs. If you don't mind a spoiler, then keep watching. But you've been doing this more recently, and we've also been modifying because we're doing a mini version so that we can just show you each of the sections one at a time. And how did you find that to change the number of stitches and things that you're working on?
Again, it's such a good exercise to trust the process. Really, you just have to kind of trust the process, trust the math. It's really nice. Again, you get a lot of agency over the pattern. So I'm going to show it now.
Go for it.
Yeah. So this is where we are. So I know that for the people that are knitting at home, it's going to be much larger, the wave parts. It's just I kind of took off one of the garter stitch sections to go straight into the waves. And it was interesting because actually that was a modification. I was not sure, and I ended up not doing it. But basically, I was, how we're adding a 10 stitch repeat after a couple of rows. I almost added it at the second wave, but I ended up not doing it because I was unsure if it was a bit too near the kind of edge. And I was wondering if you'd intended that writing the pattern
You
or
could,
not.
You could go either
Yeah.
way. Like, I mean, I think as
Yeah.
I was working through it, I probably kind of varied a little bit as well, because I wasn't at home when I was knitting it. So I think I did, whenever I was looking at it, I was kind of counting where I was, and I would move stuff around. So that is something to kind of keep in mind. The actual full stitch pattern is 10 stitches.
Yeah.
But you can actually sometimes even do
Yeah.
5 stitches and move it back and things like that as well.
Well, yeah, it's just like, had I added
Yeah.
the 10 stitch pattern
It'd be-
here, I would have
it'd be
had
right
like
on
only
the edge.
3 stitches to the edge, and I was just not sure.
Yeah.
But then now looking at it, I could have got away with it, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's wavy, so you don't expect it to be too square in terms of the design there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it works either way, because it's, having the stripes up here, you still have the contrast, but if this had pulled back a little more, it would also work. So I don't think you can kind of go wrong with either direction, really. They're both going to work.
Yeah, and you were saying earlier, and I really like how the actual wave pattern kind of comes into the 4 rows that we're doing that we're not actually waving.
Yeah, exactly. It's the main color that's going through, which is more solid because it's a heavier yarn. They form the waves, and it becomes even more dramatic when you block it, because the other parts, we will kind of show a small bit of what that's going to look like in a minute. But again, the waves are, there's 5 stitches where they're knit, and then there's the other 5 where the wraps are getting bigger and they're getting smaller to create that wave. And so the really, really fine, thin lace weight yarn is going to be almost translucent and really open with all the drops. But these ones are basically solid, and they do form those garter waves. I find it really satisfying. It's it's not a very complicated stitch, but it creates such a huge impact.
Yeah, as you said, dramatic.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of, I think also because there's such a huge contrast between, the main color and the contrast color here. Because in kind of some of the other things we've seen, when it's less dramatic, the contrast, then it's a lot more flowing. It's really nice. It's very kind of fluid, flexible. I like it.
Yeah, no, I really do. As I'm having a look down here, we've got, hey Liz, nice to see you this morning. And Sherry has joined us. Kathy from New Jersey, Audrey, Monica in Utah, Lisa in Finger Lakes, New York, and Roxanne was, she hadn't thought of looking in Teachable because it's new for her. Oh, good. Well, yeah, definitely have a look in there, because then you can see it, all of it in more detail. I will pull up and kind of show what I'm describing, but I think that you'll be able to see it a lot closer, because the camera will be closer to you, or to me, or my hands in the pattern on there. Morning, Mel and Rebecca. Good morning from Virginia. So yeah, I totally separate from this. I keep thinking about the leap year and thinking, no, it's kind of cool. It's like we've got this magic extra day. Doesn't it feel like you should do something special with it? Yeah. It's like the special leap day. It's like every 4 days I take this magical day that exists out of time.
I always think of the kids that are born on a 29th, and I'm like, how as a parent do you explain that to the children?
I know more than one. One. Yeah, I mean, they do end up having, obviously they put their birthday in a different date, but it's just cruel.
Yeah, it is for the children.
You get a birthday every 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
So Alison was saying, your waves seem a bit bubbly. Will they flatten out when blocked? I think the mohair catches. Yes and yes to all of these. That's what we're going to actually be showing.
We wanted to talk about that, yeah.
Yeah. So when you are doing the wrap, so I am going to pull up. This is not mohair, obviously, because you wouldn't be able to see it. So when you're doing the wrap stitch, when you go to knit it, normally you wrap around like this. But when you're doing a wrap stitch, you'll wrap once, and then for the one that's a 2 wrap, you wrap it a second time. So when you pull it through, you're going to have 2 loops on your needle here. So what you want is to make sure that it's on the fat part of the needle up here, so that when you work it, it's going to have the full size of the stitch. And you were saying it was really important for you to not pull too tightly, was the...
Yes. Yeah.
And the other tip, you got another tip as well. And
yes. So because it's so very easy to just wrap it at the very tip of your needles, and then it's not going to slide very well on the needles. So when I was wrapping it, I was really wrapping it at the base, usually when I knit, I knit with the tip of the needles and I have a loose tension. But here I was just making sure that I was really down where it's the thickest.
Because it's going to make you the full size stitch, whereas up here it's actually going to be smaller.
Exactly.
So then as you push it back here, it's going to get stiffer.
Yeah, exactly. And then it is a bit scary to have, you know, when you're knitting them at the next row, to have these huge kind of stitches. And I found, like, I've kind of tried two ways. The first waves, I was kind of making sure that, not pulling, but just making sure that it was really well, like, unraveled, like the stitch, just making bigger gestures, bigger motion. The motion was bigger. And then the other one I didn't, and I found that it was more wobbly, as you said. Then
so basically unwrap it and kind of almost stretch the stitch out before you knit
just very gently, because it's still like, so I kind of did that, and we were talking if this is going to change drastically with blocking.
So I'm going to let you work away with it here.
We have the blocking pad. We came prepared. So I'm going to try and demonstrate it as much as I can.
So we have, obviously, the shawl will be a biased shape. So when I started blocking it, what I did first of all is I had it nice and wet, and then I put a wire on all of the edges and then kind of stretched it open as much as I could to kind of create the shape. But after that, what I also did once I had done that is, if anywhere where that wave stitch was looking, how can I put it, a bit bockety or not as smooth as I wanted it to be, you could kind of pin that sections open a little bit. And I find when I'm blocking lace shawls, I'll often do it a few times. So I'll do the first rough one, and then if it's not looking like a smooth opening, I'll basically come back and tweak it and stretch that bit out and stretch that bit out. And this is going to give you an idea here. We can hold it up in a second when I won't hurt your Mags by making her try and hold it up.
Just give me 1 second.
But you will get an idea for, like, once you've got that first one in, we can hold it up and show what it looks like. You can see, look, it doesn't look very open yet at this point. So if I hold, when we hold the top, then I hold the top one, and do you want to pin the bottom section down to stretch it out?
So if we start doing this, something,
you can see how it looks so different once you actually open it up.
So it starts like this, and then we're gonna kind of doing that way as well. And what I like doing is, and like that's something we've talked about in a previous life for another project, but I will kind of adjust things with the tip of my needles. Will just, if I find something that I don't like, this is not wet as well, like, but you just kind of adjust it by kind of pulling the stitches in a way.
We've got a few here that are slightly longer. And there'll be a certain amount of that will adjust with blocking, but then the rest of it you can literally just get your knitting needle and pull a little of that extra to move it out to the sides as well.
Do that here.
But I will sometimes, if I'm unsure if something's going to work out, before I finish and before I do the full blocking, I'll occasionally pin it out like this and get a handheld steamer and just steam it across to see what it looks like flattened out, so that it gives you, it's not like the final one, but it means that you can really picture what it's going to look like. And also even give you the sizing, so that if you're worried it's going to be too small, gives you a much better idea in terms of size what it's going to look like. It's just so much bigger when you stretch it out.
And also you can really see how stretchy it is. It's so stretchy. Like, this is not even near the aggressive blocking that we'll be doing at the end. Like, this is still, there's still so much kind of, there's a spring to it, and it's not wet as well.
Like, I mean, I can never get over when you do block aggressively, the different way the fabric flows when you pick it up. Because like when you pick up something that's been stretched when it's blocked, it's floppier. It's got a totally different feel to the actual fabric at the end of it.
It really takes blocking to an entire other level, really.
So I'm just checking through. I haven't missed anything. No, I don't think so.
Try and adjust
Alison, I hope that kind of helps a little bit. The other thing that I was posting up in the boards, that I haven't done it with this, but there was another project where I had wrapped extra stitches. And what someone was saying they did that really helped was, for that section, they ended up switching to a straight needle. Like, I know you've got a good bit of stitches, but the benefit of that is that often if it's catching, it'll tend to be when you're moving from this part up to here. So you've got double stitches, that double stitch will catch from here to here. So if it is really driving you out of your mind and all of these tips that we're sharing aren't helping, if you've got a pair of straight needles around, even if they're slightly off size, because with this, we're doing so many wraps that if you've got something that's like a half size bigger or half size smaller, it won't have a significant difference for just those rows with the wraps. And you could try just knitting the double, triple and quadruple wrap stitches on straight needles, and then you're not going to have that push up. So it might be worth a shot. I don't have a lot of straight needles, but I've got like a few random ones like her that it would just be a matter of knitting. It would literally be knitting that one row onto one, and then you could go on the next one, you could go straight back to the circular needles at that point, but yeah, sometimes it's important to know when particular tools can be used, and I think this might be one case where straight needles could definitely be of advantage.
Yeah, I can see, like, for instance, I find that you can really block it in different ways as well. Like, this is very much vertical and this is a little bit more horizontal and stuff like that. So I can see how.
Do you have a preference?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the waves. I think that's why it's kind of really nice. I think it's the kind of thing where I would definitely, as you said, kind of adjust my blocking like to my liking, but also like kind of really spend the time on the blocking and adjusting and things. Because I used to kind of very much like put it flat and like a couple of pins and that would be it. Whereas for this, like blocking is really part of the design.
It makes shawls. It makes shawls. And I realized actually when we were like, what really kind of struck me that I hadn't been talking about it because it's a mystery as we're going along is when I was given the gauge, I obviously gave the block gauge, but what I didn't have in is it didn't say aggressive blocking. So if you did standard blocking, you wouldn't be getting the gauge.
No.
So yeah, it's
so stretchy.
Look at this.
And now it's back.
It looks totally different.
Yeah,
again.
so you really have like all of this. Then I'm not going to do too much because I would like to have like a nice kind of straight edge at the end. But that's when the tools that you have are really handy. You have this little.
The blocking wires.
Yes, the wires, they're a game changer for shawls, like to have a really neat edge.
Yeah, like because I didn't use blocking wires a lot before, like for garments and things, they're not really essential. But I think for shawls, it saves you a lot of time. So for the edge of a shawl, I will run it all the way through each edge. And the only place I might do something different is if you've got a wave or something at the very edge or something for the bind off, then I'll end up using pins to kind of open that up. But outside of that, it tends to be just those wires also let you make adjustments. So if it's like, it's not looking quite like the bias, you've got a few pins and you can just pull that wire down to the side, and it makes and it's fast to move.
Yeah, and like the wires really like make it quicker. But like there was this recent project where I think I was like, I'll just block it real quick, and that took me hours. It took me hours, but the result was just so worth it. So worth it. Yeah, no, I think that I have rarely blocked a shawl in less time than about an hour. Like by the time, even like not including the soaking time and things. It does. You need to give it a bit of time. You need to. You need to block out some time. It's a leap pun. I don't know what I was drinking this morning, but apparently it's I'm a little punch happy today. Just check here, blocking wires for your next purchase. They are very handy. And actually, but the ones we got, the ones I originally got were really big. They were long and they don't twist down. But the ones we ended up getting at the shop are very tighty. They're kind of a slightly finer wire, so they twist into a tin, which means that you can tuck them to the side, and it's much, much handier. So they're not as obtrusive. They're easier for us to ship. And it's easier for you to store because our ones, they work fine, really but they work really well. They're really very sturdy, sturdy wires.
Before we finish up today, I do want to talk about the fact that the blanket club, our blanket club that we're doing with Thea Coleman, we're coming to the tail end. Today is the actual last day that you can jump into the full club. I really want to thank you all for the support of it because, of course, it's the first time we've worked with Thea, which has been an absolute pleasure, and the fact that all of the cable inspiration that she's brought to it has really ended up, I suppose, opening or getting me to look at cables in different ways as well. So I've been learning an awful lot through the process. We've been able to, or we will be able to, put a very substantial donation towards Focus Ireland, which we're very, very happy about. So we'll make sure to let you know about that next week. And I almost forgot, we have our Clue 1 winner that I will pop into Knit Hub and I will tag her in a minute. But I've pulled, the first winner is Barbara. And Barbara, congratulations, your shawl is gorgeous, and we are going to tag it, and so you will know who you are if you're not listening in here. I'm going to send you, it'll be one pattern, one of my self-published patterns, you will get as the prize winner for this week. We'll have the same for next week. So just make sure next week you put yourself into the Clue 2 finished photos, and that's where I'll be taking the photos from. But yeah, I'm glad I pulled that in because I almost forgot. We did have up here as well. This is the Gallup wool. We had this last year. It was just the Galway Blanket Club, but this year we've got both Blasta and the Gallup. Gallup, of course, is a native Irish sheep. It's the Galway Wool Co-op has been gathering the wool from around the country. So if you want a really beautiful cream-coloured cable blanket in a single colour, the Gallup version is going to be the one for you. So you'll find that in the drop-down menu for the full club. And there's two sizes. There's the throw size, which is the larger size, or the lap size, which is the smaller size. It doesn't matter which one you're on, you're going to get the patterns for both of them. So there'll be complete patterns for each. And then the larger size, you will opt as to which ones you're going to make more squares of. If you are a part of the digital club, you will get all of the digital content. So you'll get the patterns, the videos, the Zoom, access to the Knit Hub. You just won't have the Irish yarn and the booklet and the bag. But if you've got yarn at home that you think is suitable and you're swimming in yarn, then the digital club is going to be a very good option, because you still get to knit with us. Make sure that there's no, Roxanne was saying you have long blocking rods and you store them in the tube that they came in the umbrella stand. Oh, that's very smart. Yes.
Smart, yes.
Obviously your office is missing an umbrella stand. Mine are kind of tucked up on one of the long windowsills over there. Actually, the other thing that I haven't talked about that we don't have here is, like, I use pins for the edge, but the blocking bars I use as well, which there will be, you may have seen them. I will put links for all of these in the bottom of the video afterwards if anyone's looking for them. So it's a plastic bar with several pins at the bottom.
It's like a comb, yeah.
Oh, I beg your pardon, blocking combs.
Yeah. It's
so
handy as well, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like having, 5, 6 to 8 pins together at one spot. So it's just much faster when you're putting it in, so that you can put a few in each end and you're not doing each of them.
Yeah, and you're avoiding the kind of umbrella kind of thing of, like, if you have one pin here, the rest is just going to stretch around it. So if you want to have like a really straight edge, it was really handy to use them as well. Yeah.
And like that's why I think both the bars are the pins and the wire means that you do get a straight edge, because if you're stretching aggressively, the middle part creates that wave as it wants to pull in. So you either have to use a ton of pins or a wire or something that creates a straighter edge. So that's the downside to aggressive blocking. And the reason why you can get away with it on the tips is if there's something that's meant to come into points, whether it's lace or a picot bind off or yarn over, whatever it might be on the edge of a shawl, you can pin each of those down. So you kind of take advantage of the fact that it waves, so that you're just pinning out each one of those. So it's still acting the same way, but you want it to act that way effectively.
It's such it is an essential part of the process. Like there's I don't think there's any of these designs, you just don't want, if you don't block them, it's not finished. Yeah. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, because the kind of things that I won't always block are socks, because you're going to wash them so often anyway. I'll always wear them first of all, and then I reckon the first washing is blocking, right? Because they're designed to be stretched to knittle, and particularly if they're a fairly plain one, they will look fine and they're not going to be on display. But yeah, for things like that where there's nothing curling and you wash them frequently anyway, I kind of reckon wear them for a few days.
Yeah, I don't really block my socks, but yeah, no, the shawl is definitely, that's why it's an interesting project as well, the MKAL,
Yeah, you get a lot of different steps going on. I want to make sure. Rebecca, you enjoyed the blocking tips, Rebecca. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Going back to the actual stitch pattern as well, one thing I haven't talked about is if you've made any modifications. So if you added in extra short rows, or you added in extra rows so that you were making it bigger, or maybe you made it smaller, you've actually got a huge amount of flexibility with the way this whole thing is built in. Because if we hold it up here, the middle section here, these waves are stitch repeats of 10 stitch, a pattern repeat. So if you've got an extra 10 stitches, then you just put one more pattern repeat. If you didn't quite have the 10 stitches, then you can actually leave a couple of extra at the end or a couple more at the start. Generally speaking, what you want to do is be a little closer to the start of the pattern because of the fact that you're doing those increases still here. Because of course you keep working the bias with the stitch pattern. So these first ones over here, you'll still have the increase at the start of the row on the right side and at the end of the row on the wrong side. So that's going to keep growing no matter what you do. But you have to leave some stitches here at the end, enough for each of those right side decreases. So just, you can follow the pattern, or if you've got a different number of stitches, you can count how many decreases you need here and make sure you've got that plus one or two more at this side here, because you'd have the edge stitch as well. And as you're decreasing, you need that other stitch. So they're the only two things you need to think about if you've adjusted your stitch pattern, because it is quite forgiving, I think, for adding and removing stitches. Yeah,
I think it's just that it, once you kind of caught on what you're doing at both of your edges and what the pattern repeat is, it's kind of, as you said, you kind of get to have some fun with the pattern, which is really nice.
And I think that like actually blocking them off, it puts a lot more freedom in your hands in terms of being able to adjust, so that you can decide what size you want it. And if you're going along and you're like, actually, I'm kind of sorry I didn't make it bigger, you might perhaps drop it down and do something else. One thing I hadn't thought about that could be kind of fun, there's a couple of these waves. You could actually even intersperse some short rows in between the waves. I hadn't thought of doing that, but that could actually be fun as well.
That would be taking it to the next level. And also yarn permitting. If you go, like I would be afraid to go nuts with making it bigger, because I don't want to run out of yarn.
You will need more of the main color if you're making it bigger. Just a big like warning there, like sitting on the top, because you're going to be pushing kind of to the edge of your main color. So yes, absolutely, make sure you have enough of that, but you will have a little bit extra of that contrast color. So you've got a small bit to play with that, because the lace tends to have such good yardage. To make sure. Elsa Louise, what shape will Bristol Ivy's shawl be in the Lace Club?
Interesting question.
It's not going to be this shape. It will not be biased. It's going to be, I'm trying to describe it. It's like a semicircular plus. I think you call it a crescent shape. I think I've seen it described as. So not really, really deep, but the wings come out quite wide. So that's probably the best way to describe it. Anyone who is not in the Seasons Club, I'll talk a little bit more about it next week, and I will kind of get into yarn details. But it is opening tomorrow night at 8:00. Anyone who is already a member and who is a subscriber, you'd already gotten your renewal email, and you'll get to see the yarn. The yarn is gorgeous. It's really luscious. I've got Laura is sitting behind us there, and she's nodding because Laura pretty much can't stop fondling the yarn. It's her new favorite best friend. It's very, very, very soft. So it'll make a pretty luscious shawl. But that will be next week, and I will absolutely tell you more about it, as well as wrapping up the final clue for this knit along, where we'll be introducing another really fun stitch pattern. I think you're going to enjoy this one. That's it from us this week. If you are looking at this after the fact and you've got a question, just pop it into the comments and we'll make sure to answer it. And it'll be the same time next week back here. So make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss it. And thanks for joining us today. Bye.
Bye.